It wasn't the cameras or the flashbulbs that caught him off guard. It was the quiet authority Denzel carried, stepping into a space defined by power and rewriting its current. The courtroom buzzed low with anticipation. Trump had appeared confident in every previous hearing, maintaining control in the face of media and legal pressure. But when Denzel arrived, someone unexpected, yet undeniably significant, that calm fractured. The judge paused, the attorneys paused, even Trump's legal team glanced toward the door. The guest list hadn't included him. Yet here he was, staring down at a table of packed documents. The atmosphere shifted, because everyone there understood what no one had expected. This wasn't a spectacle. It was a reckoning. Trump finally met Denzel's gaze. He opened his mouth, but nothing emerged. The courtroom hush deepened. If you want to see how this moment changes everything, hit subscribe now. Because what comes next is the kind of evidence they don't want you to see, documents that rewrite the script. The judge cleared her throat, swiveling her gavel rhythmically, eyes fixed on both men. Donald Trump sat rigid in his seat, suit still, hands folded in that signature posture, an image of control now under threat. The gallery held its collective breath. The judge began, "Mr. Trump, counsel has requested a recess. We will allow the visitor to speak." She glanced at the door. "Mr. Washington, you may proceed." Denzel stood, shoulders square and measured. He carried no papers. Not yet. He walked to the center of the room as if he'd rehearsed this moment his entire life, and then some. No arrogance, just resolution. He cleared his throat. "Your Honor, members of the court, I believe the people deserve clarity. Entire clarity. We all know what's been argued. We all know what's been filed. But there are documents, full context, that have never been seen." His voice was steady but firm. Trump nodded stiffly, but his eyes betrayed unease. Something shifted, a gust of anxiety that came from knowing Denzel wasn't bluffing. Denzel continued. "These documents," he nodded toward an assistant who carried a discreet portfolio, "were obtained legally. Verified. Untampered." The assistant stepped forward and handed a stack to the clerk, who placed it before the judge. "They illuminate what past filings concealed." Trump swallowed hard. He looked to his lawyers. They looked back with wide eyes. The air in the room weighted toward revelation. Denzel didn't pause. He spoke to the judge. "Your Honor, these papers contain correspondence between the defendant's organization and undisclosed parties. Letters of intent, memos verifying transfers, internal communications, materials that directly address questions in this case." Trump's jaw clenched. He watched while Denzel brought his voice level to the highest bench. They show an awareness, a knowledge, and a decision made, knowingly and explicitly. That's more than intent. That's admission. The judge glanced down at the documents. Then at Trump. "Counsel, do you have a response?" Trump's lead attorney rose, blood rushing to his face. "Your Honor, we contest the authenticity." Denzel halted him. "We don't contest. We present." His voice sliced through the courtroom. Every document was authenticated, every signature verified, every timeline corroborated. A reporter in the gallery scribbled faster. The jurors leaned forward. The silence felt like two worlds holding breath. Trump's mind raced. He stared at Denzel like a man seeing the iceberg ahead. You can't," he ground out. Denzel pointed, calm but precise. "Your Honor, if the court allows me, I will call the custodian of records next. He will verify chain of custody. He will confirm all verifications." Trump's lawyer protested again. "This is—" The judge cut him off. "Submit an objection. We will rule." "Mr. Washington, proceed." Trump's attorney glared at the judge. But the moment had turned. Denzel took a breath. "Your Honor, may these documents be entered into evidence?" The judge hesitated briefly, then nodded. "Yes, the court accepts documents 34A through 34G. Gasps rippled softly. Trump clenched his fists under the table. He knew what was coming. Denzel stepped back. "Thank you, Your Honor." He turned to Trump. Mr. Trump, the American people will have access to all this. They can judge for themselves. That struck like a blow. The judge called the court into recess. Everyone stood, but not out of ceremony. They stood because they were part of history being written. Trump stood stiff, eyes never leaving Denzel. The gallery murmured softly, but it wasn't chatter. It was stunned comprehension. Outside the courtroom doors, the cameras swarmed. Reporters raised microphones. One shouted, "Mr. Washington, what's next?" Denzel paused, then spoke calmly, still with resolve. "Next, we verify it all. We ensure this is not just legal, but true. And we let every American see it for themselves." He swept past the line of reporters. An image flashed in the media, a man of dignity walking away with purpose. Back inside, Trump paced near his counsel. His lawyers watched the files that now lay open. The balance had shifted. In that moment, everyone felt it. Power didn't just sit in handshakes or headlines. Power could be handed through paper. And once handed, it couldn't be taken away. Donald Trump returned to his seat with the stiffness of a man who couldn't retreat but didn't dare advance. He whispered something to his attorney, who shook his head slowly. There was no pivot point left. The courtroom had absorbed the shift, and it wasn't returning to neutral. The judge banged the gavel once. "Court is now in session. The witness may be called." The clerk stood, calling Walter Jennings, records custodian, Independent Compliance Review Board. From the rear of the courtroom, a man in his 60s stepped forward. Wire-rimmed glasses, gray hair, crisp navy suit. No theatrics, just the presence of a man used to being trusted with the details no one wanted seen. Jennings took the oath, sat down, and adjusted his glasses. Denzel approached calmly. "Mr. Jennings, have you reviewed the documents labeled 34A through 34G? "I have." "And you verified their origin?" "Yes. They were submitted from 3 independent whistleblower sources. All documents match original metadata. No alterations. The signatures have been authenticated by an independent forensic lab." Denzel nodded once. "Are you aware of the contents?" "Yes." "And in your professional opinion, are these documents legitimate and relevant to the subject of this trial?" "They are both." Trump's attorney shifted forward. "Objection. We haven't verified Jennings' expertise." The judge interrupted. "Mr. Jennings has testified in 23 federal cases. His qualifications are on file." Denzel looked directly at Trump. "Mr. Jennings, could you read Section 4 of Exhibit 34C? Jennings flipped the page. Quote, "The directive from the Office of Executive Coordination confirms awareness of potential ethical conflict and instructs that all third-party interactions be off-book and untraceable. Compliance is assumed." The courtroom froze. Trump muttered something inaudible. His lawyer leaned in, whispering furiously. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Trump, if you have a response, please do so through your counsel." Denzel continued. "Mr. Jennings, to your knowledge, was this directive signed by the defendant?" Jennings looked at the page. "Yes. Donald J. Trump." Silence deepened. A rustle moved through the gallery. One juror placed a hand over their mouth. A journalist typed so fast her laptop shook. Trump spoke loudly now, directed at the judge. "This is political. You're allowing a movie star to run your courtroom." The judge answered without looking up. "You may submit a motion to that effect. This court deals in procedure, not position." Denzel stayed calm. "Mr. Trump, the question isn't who presents the truth. It's whether the truth can stand unshaken." Trump rose halfway from his seat. "You people don't understand power." Denzel didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "Power that hides from truth isn't power. It's fear." The room stayed still. Trump sat back down slowly. Denzel nodded to Jennings. "No further questions." Jennings stepped down. The gallery buzzed with breathless tension. The judge said, "Mr. Trump's counsel, would you like to cross-examine?" The lead attorney stood but didn't approach. Not at this time. Denzel returned to his seat, hands folded. The documents remained on the judge's bench like a silent verdict. Outside, the court sketch artist was drawing faster than ever. The image wouldn't be subtle. Trump staring forward, eyes narrowed, Denzel leaning back with quiet purpose, the judge between them like a symbol of a system trying to breathe. The judge called a 5-minute recess. Denzel stepped into the hallway. A reporter asked, "Do you think this changes the outcome?" Denzel paused. "It's not about changing the outcome. It's about changing the pattern. The idea that some people stay above truth while the rest of us drown in its wake." He walked away, not flanked by cameras, but followed by silence. Inside the courtroom, Trump's team huddled. They weren't discussing strategy. They were calculating damage. The documents were now public record. The people would read them. Court resumed not with a bang, but with the kind of stillness that makes people brace for impact. The bailiff called for order. The judge re-entered, expression unchanged, but his hands gripped the bench more tightly now. Denzel Washington stood again. His voice remained calm, but there was an unmistakable gravity in his pacing. "Your Honor," we called Dr. Maya LeClaire. From the back row, a slender woman with silver hair and a gray suit walked to the stand. Her presence was quiet, but you could feel it settle across the courtroom like fine dust. She was a systems analyst, formerly with a federal oversight committee, now independent. Clean record, no political baggage. Denzel nodded once. "Dr. LeClaire, were you tasked with examining communications referenced in Exhibits 34D through 34F? "Yes, I was." "Would you describe the nature of those communications?" "They are internal memos, handwritten notes, schedules. Some of them bear initials consistent with the defendant's personal shorthand. Others reference names that were previously redacted from committee reports," Denzel said. "And what do those documents reveal?" Dr. LeClaire replied. "They reveal a coordinated effort to divert oversight, remove audit trails, and ensure that multiple transactions remained invisible to official record-keeping." Trump's attorney shot up. "Objection. Speculative." The judge responded, sustained in part. "Dr. LeClaire, please restrict your comments to what is verifiable within the documents." She nodded. "The documents show signatures, encrypted authorizations, and calendar confirmations. None of this is speculative. It's procedural fact." Denzel asked, "Do any of the signatures match the defendant's?" Dr. LeClaire didn't blink. "Yes. 5 instances." Trump's shoulders slumped. Not dramatically, not in a way that most people would catch. But Denzel saw it. He wasn't just listening now. He was absorbing weight. Denzel turned to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, the question is no longer whether misconduct occurred. The question is whether we, as a nation, still care." He let it land. One juror, a middle-aged woman in a navy blazer, wiped her eye. Not from emotion, from clarity. Denzel continued. "If any citizen, no matter how ordinary, did what these documents describe, they would not be seated in this courtroom. They'd be in handcuffs." Trump's voice cracked through the silence. "I was the president. You think I didn't have enemies? You think these people weren't trying to sabotage me from the beginning?" Denzel turned slowly. "Mr. Trump, leadership isn't defined by who you fight. It's defined by what you protect. And all we've seen today is what you chose to hide." The judge banged the gavel. "Mr. Trump, final warning. You will allow the court to proceed without interruption." Trump fell silent, lips tight, fingers tapping the table like a metronome counting down the end of something. Denzel turned back to Dr. LeClaire. "One final question. Are any of these patterns consistent with standard executive behavior?" "No," she said flatly. "They're consistent with concealment." "Thank you." She stepped down. The prosecution's table fell quiet. The judge leaned forward. "Does the defense wish to present a witness?" Trump's lead attorney stood slowly. He adjusted his tie, looked at Trump, then said, "No, Your Honor. The defense rests." It wasn't a statement of confidence. It was a quiet surrender. The judge nodded. "Very well. Closing statements will commence after recess." Outside, media anchors were already preparing for live coverage. Pundits debated what the documents meant. Twitter surged. Supporters screamed conspiracy. Critics screamed accountability. But in the middle stood one thing that neither side could spin: the record. It was there now. In ink. In signatures. In still photographs of Donald Trump frozen, mid-sentence, unable to rewrite what had just been read aloud. Back in the courtroom, Denzel sat alone at the prosecutor's table. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't victorious. He looked tired. Not from defeat. From truth. Truth was heavy. Truth was slow. Truth didn't always roar. Sometimes, it just stood there, undeniable. After the recess, the judge returned with deliberate gravity. The courtroom fell silent as closing arguments began. Denzel Washington stood once more. His voice was calm but resolute. "Your Honor, members of the jury," he began, "we have heard testimony. We have reviewed documents. We have faced incarceration of in memory, and what remains is undeniable accountability. Power does not erase responsibility. Leadership does not demand secrecy. And at no point in history has silence been the response to such overwhelming evidence." He paused to meet every juror's gaze. "We're not here to destroy someone's legacy. We're here to preserve justice. For every American, regardless of name or fame." Trump shifted in his seat. His legal team exchanged glances, uneasy, calculating. Denzel continued. "Countless citizens have followed the documented procedure. They've answered inconvenient questions. They've faced uncomfortable scrutiny. Because if there's a line, it's because we drew it together. And we didn't draw it to impress a headline. We drew it to protect the truth." He looked at Trump respectfully. "Mr. Trump, you stood in this courtroom. You looked at the evidence. You heard the testimony. You froze, not because you didn't know who you were, because you knew what was at stake." He closed his argument. "History will remember the documents. History will remember how we responded. Justice isn't just about penalty, it's about precedent." The courtroom waited as Trump's attorney rose. His voice was measured, defensive. "Your Honor, jurors," he began, "no one here doubts the man before you has lived in the public eye. We acknowledge his significance." He paused. "But this trial isn't about fame. It's about legal standards. And there is reasonable doubt." He paced slowly. "We've verified signatures, but not authenticity. We've heard analysis, but not corroboration from whistleblowers. We've seen memos, but we haven't heard witnesses from the offices they reference." He looked at Trump. "Do you deny these documents, sir?" Trump looked back, silent. The attorney pressed on. "When a man can't answer, the court must consider. Is this silence guilt or strategy?" He pivoted to the jury. "You must be sure, beyond the shadow of doubt, that these documents are real, relevant, and indisputable. Anything less is not justice. It's vengeance." He sat down. The room was taut again, balancing between conviction and uncertainty. The judge offered final instructions to the jury. Focus on evidence, ignore outside commentary, deliberate with integrity. Trump watched every juror stand to exit. One woman gave his direction a steady gaze. He looked away. Denzel walked forward, a final moment. "Thank you," he said softly to the court. He didn't need to grandstand. His conviction said it all. They filed out of the courtroom. Cameras panned to the judge's bench where Exhibits 34A, G rested like silent witnesses. Trump's team huddled, Denzel alone, now surrounded by reporters. One asked, "Was this enough?" He looked into the camera lens with purpose. The evidence speaks for itself. The question now, can justice listen? He walked away. The media frenzy followed. Inside the courtroom doors, jurors filed into the deliberation room. Inside, silence reigned. They sat. They listened. They weighed each memo, each signature, each carefully heard testimony against legal burden. Outside, political pundits claimed headlines. Supporters questioned bias. Critics called it reckoning. But in that jury room, none of that mattered. They held the power of verdict. And when they emerged, the weight on their shoulders would carry more than a case. It would echo throughout history. After hours behind closed doors, the jury returned. The courtroom settled into stillness. Every eye turned to the judge, every breath slowed. The foreperson stood and cleared their throat. "Your Honor, we have reached a verdict." Trump froze at the bench. His once confident posture tightened. Reporters raised their pens, cameras zoomed. The foreperson continued, voice firm. "For the charge of obstruction of justice, we find the defendant guilty." A collective exhale shook the room. The gavel came down with finality. Trump's face faltered. His eyes searched the jury, then flicked to Denzel Washington, who sat unwavering, composed. The documents lay open behind him, silent yet powerful. Denzel rose slowly and whispered, "Thank you." He met Trump's gaze with quiet resolve, not triumph, not mercy, just acknowledgement that justice had found its footing. Trump sat down, jaw tight. His legal team appeared stunned, shifting as though searching for a lost thread in their strategy. His supporters gasped. Some heads bowed, others stared at the ceiling. No one moved first. The judge spoke, voice calm. "Counsel, please approach." Then, "Mr. Trump, court is adjourned." Outside, the courthouse steps became a stage. Denzel Washington emerged first. No cameras awaited him, yet they found him anyway, drawn to the gravity of his presence. A reporter asked, "Mr. Washington, your reaction?" He paused, taking in the moment, the crowd, the lights, the murmurs. He said, "Justice doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to all of us. When truth is revealed and upheld, it's not a victory, it's a responsibility." He stepped aside, allowing the next moment to unfold. Trump emerged next, flanked by lawyers. His face was tight, composed, but changed. The statements he gave were brief. No long speeches. His voice was distant as he said, "We'll appeal." Then he looked up, eyes scanning the faces in front of him. "But today's decision will stand." He stepped into waiting vehicles. The departure was silent. Days later, in living rooms across America, the verdict replayed. Families argued. Friends debated. Some cheered. Others protested. But all were forced to confront what the court had conceded. Accountability matters, even for those who thought they stood above it. Denzel appeared on a Sunday broadcast, seated quietly. His words were simple. "We didn't prosecute a person. We honored a principle. That no one is too big to be accountable. That when power meets responsibility, responsibility must win." It wasn't fanfare. It was a statement of ordinary dignity, a quiet candle in a storm. Months passed. Reforms followed. Congressional committees examined similar procedures. Law journals cited the documents. Law schools taught the trial. The revelations became classroom case studies. Yet, in all that, the man who presented them remained unchanged. Denzel Washington returned to his life, arts, family, purpose, humility. But the courtroom, the world, had changed. Years later, at a law symposium, a scholar referenced the case. He said, "They didn't just prosecute Donald Trump. They probed what we expect from our leaders. They showed that the truth may freeze a room, but it can thaw a nation." He looked at his audience. They nodded, because some truths demand attention. Some moments ask more of us than entertainment or spectacle. Some moments ask us to see power for what it can be, a tool of service, not escape. That day in court, Donald Trump didn't just freeze. He met something bigger than himself, the measure of justice. And Denzel Washington? He didn't just reveal documents. He reminded us that truth, when wielded with conscience, can still shape history.